bit about our agenda. William's going to come down and he's going to lead us in the invocation. And then I'm going to introduce some special guests that we have that'll lead us in the pledge to the nation's flag and the pledge to the Texas flag. William?
Let's stand, please. Father, we come to you tonight to say thank you. Thank you for this beautiful, sweet city that you've given, that you've made, that you've put together. We just want your wisdom. We want peace. Father, we pray that we do the right thing for every single person in the city, not only for today, but for tomorrow. We ask that you continue to bless this great city and the people that are in it and the people that lead it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And now I'd ask Misha Baldwin, will you come down, please? Ashton Parekh, Addison Rawbone, Araya Patel, Carolyn Singleton, Fatima Perez, Inaya Badami, Jaya Patel, Mariam Marfani, Naomi Varghese, Nina Doe, Samya Kabnoor, and Shania Lalani. Who's going to lead? There we go. Former MIAC, Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. Here we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Tell us a little bit about it.
We are the Austin Angels dance team. We're from Austin High School. We have a season year-round, so we'll come back to school starting mid-July, and we actually have like 3 different parts to our year. We'll start out, we march with our band in the band show, and then midway through the year, we have our own contest season where we do our own dances with our own genres, and then we'll finish out our year with our spring show. Yeah, and that's just a little bit about kind of what we do throughout the year. We have a lot of different events where we kind of go out and engage with the community and have the community come and work with us. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Thank you very much.
Nailed it.
Okay. Come on down, council members. Let's get a picture. So you didn't know. Now we're going to move to the public comment phase. I'm not going to read over the rules of engagement. I think everybody knows what they are, but we will abide by the same rules that we've abided by for the last few meetings. I've got a couple people that are signed up to speak. We'll take them in order. Our first guest is Kimberly Plato, and she wants to speak on item number 4, letter A. Kimberly. Good evening.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. Good evening. I'd like to speak about capital improvements here in the city of Sugar Land. I've been a resident here for approximately 25 years, and I've absolutely loved living here in this city. It's one of the best places on earth as far as I'm concerned. Some of the things that I love about it is I love how beautiful our city is, how there's tree-lined streets. You see kids playing in the neighborhoods, parks, in beautiful lakes and streams and rivers and rock gardens. It's a beautiful place to live, a safe place to live, and that's one of the reasons why I've lived here for the last 25 years, along with having my family here. I read some disturbing comments in the news the past week in the Houston Chronicle about the power plant having to do with building the infrastructure here. Building the infrastructure here in Fort Bend County. I understand that we definitely have a power issue. We have from the freeze that we had, people lost power. And I don't know necessarily that a power plant is the right thing to do for the city of Sugar Land. My concern is that it'll decrease property values, and then also it'll emit gases into our environment. I'm an ICU nurse, and I dealt with, during COVID, having patients die due to bronchial infections, having COPD, emphysema, bronchitis, asthma, and I got to see what the effects of having COVID on top of these diseases. I got to hold people's hands for their last breath, and I'm scared with the emissions that this plant will produce will cause a lot higher increase in risk of cancer, plus having more difficulties for people to breathe here in the city of Sugar Land. I'm also concerned about what it'll do for our property values. The wonderful thing of living here in Sugar Land is our property values have continued to increase over the years. I'm sure many of you guys have had that benefit of your property values increasing. I'm scared having this plant being built that it will decrease our property values, so it won't help our infrastructure. Going back to the initial problem of that we have to have more power and more energy for homes. So what the city of Sugar Land did is for saving water, is they had the water barrels that you could get at a discounted price. So that was one of my suggestions, is either doing discounts with generators or discounts with solar panels to help add energy back to the grid. This would be a nice environmentally friendly option that would also be beneficial to solve the main problem that we're having, is having enough power for our infrastructure. So this would just be another option. One of the things I was trying to find out is what is the environmental
30
impact?
seconds.
Yes, what are the environmental impacts this plant will have on our community? And I haven't been able to find that. That was one of the things why I was coming here, to find out directly from your mouth as to what is the plan for our community. Because I know I'm not the only resident that loves this community, and I figure if I'm not willing to stand up and say something, who will? Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could, in the audience, if we could refrain from clapping, please. Our next guest is Michelle McKeska, and she wants to speak on item 3C. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I am here to speak on agenda item 3C, which reads, it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, accepting the Internet Crimes Against Children grant from the state of Texas Office of the Attorney General through the City of Houston Police Department, Houston Metro Internet Crimes Against Children Group, and designating the city manager or his designee as authorized grant official to sign documents to administer and implement the grant, and authorization of a budget amendment in the amount of $42,490 to revenue and expenditures. I can understand why the Sugar Land PD would request of the council to accept this grant. It is the duty of every society to protect its children. It is also a basic truth of humanity that all children are our children. If we start to select which children matter and which children do not, we are allowing terrible violence to befall certain children who we deem less valuable. All children are at risk of predators online, but the statistics of those who are most vulnerable are LGBTQ kids, disabled children, and kids in lower income families. These risks could be mitigated if social media corporations like Meta, Snapchat, and YouTube were better regulated by our government. Instead, they have been allowed to operate however they like in order to make a massive amount of profit off of our kids. Social media is a tool that can be used for good or ill. We can make these sites safer for our kids without having to resort to banning an entire app, as our government just recently did in an incredibly short-sighted move to ban free speech. Those kind of political games are always incredibly transparent. It is clear that politicians at the federal level do not care one bit about our children. And they certainly do not care about the children around the globe, as they continue to manufacture and send bombs that kill and maim 15,000 children
Ms.
in Gaza.
McKeska, please keep the comments to the city of Sugar Land and to the agenda item, which is not what you're talking about now. Thank you.
I'm glad that our city claims to be concerned about the safety of our children online. But if a child does not have food, water, or basic safety, I ask you, what is a safe internet going to do for them? What will a safe internet do for those who are shadow banned from asking for help or sharing their story of how they lost their entire family? What will a safe internet do for the children mining the minerals to create the phones we use for the internet? No one disagrees with making the internet a safer place for our kids, but a lot of you seem to disagree with the basic premise that all children should be protected from harm. Free Palestine.
Our next guest is Ms. Garcia. She wants to speak on items number D and G.
My name is Sarai Garcia, and I'm here to speak on agenda items 3D and G. Upon reading these proposals, something came to mind. Why is it that EMS and fire departments have to continuously get subsidized by outside entities such as CERTRAC, while the police department is continually asking for more money coming out of taxpayer funds, such as the nearly $500,000 for 2 modular buildings? Why are these not budgeted for with the money already appropriated to them? Why was this expense not foreseen when it states in the executive summary that Sugar Land Police Department has grown significantly in terms of personnel, services offered, and technological advances? This growth has led to an increased need for office space and training space to accommodate the expanding workforce and new programs for the department. How was this not budgeted for? As far as I can tell, it wasn't because there is no need to plan accordingly, since City Council will just give Sugar Land PD all the money they need. But at what cost? Is this why organizations like CERTRAC exist, to subsidize for the police department's inflated budget? What is CERTRAC? What does it do? This is from their mission statement. The mission of the Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council is to develop and sustain a powerful coalition of providers, responders, and other healthcare-related partners united together to save lives and improve health outcomes throughout research, education, and collaboration. On the clinical side, our trauma, stroke, cardiac, pediatric, maternal, and prenatal committees work to establish standards of care and protocols for consideration and / adoption by area hospitals, EMS agencies, and other providers. We foster collaboration to educate our communities and collectively deliver appropriate care with appropriate trained providers and embracing best practices. This is actually a wonderful organization setting out to give better care with better outcomes. For that to be a possibility, our EMS providers need to be equipped to do their jobs. It is essential to be able to treat patients with the best quality equipment and medical supplies. I realize that right now it is not always possible, like in Palestine. For example, if you don't have access to hospitals, clinics, because they have been blown up, how do we care for the most needy? How do we ensure that quality care is still delivered when there may be a lack of infrastructure or resources in place? I just want to say thank you to CETRAC for taking on issues like this and your subsidies of almost $40,000 to Sugar Land EMS. $40,000 is also a low estimate of how many people have been murdered in Palestine.
Ma'am, please keep your comments. Our next guest is Ms. Azad. She wants to speak on agenda items 3E.
Okay, today I'll be speaking on an actionable agenda item 3E, which is the consideration of an action on a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, for appointing members to the Legislative Citizens Task Force. This is a task force for you to appoint to make recommendations to the state government. I find it hypocritical that you all have stated that you as a city cannot make statements or recommendations outside the scope of the city administration, but are now making a task force to be our city's voice at the state level. And just like at the last meeting, you all made a committee for intergovernmental relations, which included the federal government. How sad it is that you push this narrative that the city has no power in state and federal affairs when you have these committees and programs in place at the city level. You all actually think we are dumb. Anyone with a basic education knows how American government works and how it all starts at the city level, and how you all are the ones that your city constituents go to first, and then should take it up the chain of command. Attached to your agenda are the names of 13 people you are appointing to this state committee. I would like to point out that the city of Sugar Land has a very large and prominent Arab and Muslim community. However, it's appalling that there is not one single Arab or Muslim sounding name on that list. Is it because you want to uphold Sugar Land City Council's Islamophobic rhetoric that hates on visibly Muslim constituents or Muslims who don't conform or assimilate to your liking? Now that you as a city are making a task force to be advocates for your constituents who can make recommendations at the state, I would advise that this task force put forth the recommendation that Texas should divest from all of its investments utilizing Sugar Land resident tax dollars into foreign terrorist states. Texas Comptroller Glenn Hagar announced the purchase of an additional $45 million in foreign apartheid terrorist state bonds this past year, continuing to provide cash flow to them using our taxes. Since 1994, Texas has invested in an apartheid state yearly.
Ma'am, please keep your comments to the Legislative Task Force.
This is the Legislative Task Force.
The Legislative Task Force does not have anything to do with Glenn Hager's office, ma'am. Please keep your comments to the Legislative Task Force.
Recommendations for us, for our city, right? Are they not? So I think I'm sticking to the topic very clearly, very clearly. So the state will hold about $140 million in apartheid state bonds. This legislative committee should be our voice at the state as described in your city agenda, and we demand that they hear our voices. This council should not be making recommendations to make a city task force for the state or federal government without the input of its constituents and misleading its constituents to think that y'all have no say in state or federal issues. Free Palestine.
That's our final guest this evening. We're going to move on to item number 3, consent agenda. We're going to take all these items as one motion unless a council member wants to pull an item. Do I have a motion? Got a motion by Kermally, second by McCutcheon. You'll vote this time, please. And it passes unanimously, 7-0. Thank you, council members. On to item number 4, workshop. 4A, review of and discussion on draft fiscal year 2025-2029 capital improvement program and long-range capital improvement planning efforts and strategies. We have with us our Deputy City Manager, Jennifer May, and Robert Wilson, our Assistant City Engineer. Welcome, Jennifer. Robert.
Good evening. We are excited to be here to talk about long-range strategies and some plans for the next 5 years. And so just as some quick background, the city's 5-year CIP facilitates the planning and management of the city's infrastructure needs and is rooted in a variety of planning documents. As a note, the city's charter does require that the city manager file a multi-year CIP annually alongside the budget. As I mentioned, the CIP looks to a variety of documents when identifying projects, ranging from the Citizen Satisfaction Survey, our asset management program, master plans, and more. The CIP isn't, however, just an infrastructure document. It's also a financial planning document. And so we also look to our financial management policy statements when we are putting this document together. And so these policies contemplate multiple funding sources for projects, including debt. And specifically, the financial management policy statements anticipate the use of general obligation bond elections approximately every 5 years or so to increase transparency and resident engagement. The city to date has had 3 bond elections. Those are shown on the screen, with the most recent one in 2019 focused on 4 areas, and you can see that we have made significant progress since the approval of those projects, even through COVID. And so today's workshop, Robert will focus on reviewing the draft fiscal year 25 through 29 CIP with you, and I'll focus on long-term strategies, which include a discussion on the out-year use of a GEO bond election to fund projects. So as I mentioned, data and public input are important to us, and so I'll just quickly step you through a little bit of the data that has guided these projects that will be discussed. And so for public safety, we know that very clearly public safety is the number one reason that residents choose to live in Sugar Land. When it comes to the condition of our streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, residents have told us that this is one of the high priorities for improvement. We also see that drainage continues to be a priority, though you can see that our recent dedicated investments in this service area have led to improvement in this dropping to the medium category within the importance satisfaction ratings. When it comes to traffic, this is an area that residents annually tell us and regularly tell us is important to them, particularly traffic congestion along major thoroughfares. And it's no surprise to see that this is the top item in the importance satisfaction rating. Additionally, we are nearing the completion of our update to the facilities master plan, which is looking at where we are as a life cycle of a city, and at this point has identified the need for reinvestment in our aging buildings. And so we have been working to quantify this need, and this is an example of where we are now for the building survey. And then again, like I said, the CIP is at its heart a financial planning document, which means we also look at data related to resident satisfaction with the overall value for tax dollars that they receive, and we're proud to exceed our benchmarks. And so looking to the future when it comes to strategy, why bond elections? The city and cities across the state and country look to do bond elections when funding for the identified projects is not available within the existing capacity or within the existing time frame for wanting to begin or complete the projects, and also when governing bodies seek voter input and want to see whether or not voters would support approval of those projects. And so we have visited with you in different planning sessions about a potential bond election and have been looking to plan for something no more than $350 million, recognizing that that equates to about $300 million in project cost in today's dollars, because we're looking at a 5 to 7 year planning period. The direction has been to look at no more than a 5-cent tax rate increase spread over that planning period, And then the project prioritizations have been to maximize public safety, fully leverage the Fort Bend County Mobility Bond projects, emphasize sidewalks and mobility and the full scope of the animal shelter, and then consider projects in other categories as well. And I'll go over those. This just shows the breakdown between the project cost in today's dollars with the additional amount built in for inflation. And then looking at this is a pie chart that you will see showing the distribution of the draft project list, with about 75% of it focused on public safety and streets, mobility, and sidewalks, about 10% each for drainage and facilities, and then the remainder for the animal shelter. As I will note, Robert's presentation will cover the totality of the capital improvement program and the plan for investment in the community. And there you'll see that we are looking to utilize other funding sources to deliver parks projects. So for public safety, which is about 40% of the total, projects being considered are the renovation of the existing building and new space for a police headquarters, fire station rebuild and expansion, replacement and rebuilding of fire apparatus, training facilities, general facilities rehabilitation, some rehabilitation work at a fuel station, and then some SWAT command vehicles. On the streets and mobility side, you will see the list of the Fort Bend County Mobility Bond projects, followed by major street rehabilitation, investments in sidewalk enhancements, and residential streets reconstruction and panel replacement. You'll also see mobility projects as it relates to Austin Parkway and Commonwealth, trail connections across the city, pedestrian improvements along Dulles Avenue, mobility program and traffic signal rehab, and then some connections between some of our major economic centers and improvements surrounding Imperial. Drainage, you have two projects, Hillstone and Windmill, that are related. Right. So for drainage, you have two projects in the Chimney Stone area, the first two, followed by Sugar Lakes inlet replacements, some work along Highway 6, and then some drainage projects within First Colony and Telfair for about 10% of the total. Municipal facilities is really focused right now on the work from that draft facilities master plan, looking at the rehabilitation and corrective maintenance of some of our facilities, plus some modernization, as well as a new facility for our field maintenance employees. And then on the animal shelter, supplemental funding for the animal shelter to provide for the full and expanded scope of that project. And so on the financial strategy side, our assumptions are we are looking at a 5 to 7 year planning period. We intend fully to maintain our AAA bond rating, remain one of the lowest tax rates in the state of Texas among cities our size. There is a planned slight increase for the remainder of the 2019 voter authorization. And then as you saw, we are planning for extensive inflation over that planning period, with an annual 4% discount to be applied once we finalize the phasing plan for the projects. So one way that we fund this and buy down the need to increase the tax rate is to utilize the declining debt service that we have right now and the capacity within our existing tax rate. We also are still waiting on the certified tax roll from the appraisal district to understand what revaluation will do in the coming year, but we are planning for revaluation in the out years. And then just looking at the incremental impact to the tax rate from a potential no more than 5 cent tax rate increase, this would be about $5 a month each year. Or if you compare the tax bill now to the end of the planning period, about $20 per month cumulative fee. And so at this point, I am happy to take any questions or turn it over now to Robert to continue the totality of the planned CIP so that you can see all of the other categories. And then I'll wrap up with community engagement next.
Thanks, Jennifer. Questions of Jennifer? Yeah, William?
Thank you for this. I know this is a lot of work for our team, and I'm grateful that you're looking after our city. The animal services is always a very interesting topic because we go back all the way to 2019. and there were dollars approved then, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 6.6 million, and this new ask would be about 11 million. So you just kind of go into that. We would use that entire amount, or?
Yes, so I'm going to, Rob may be quick to join me to give more detail on this, but the amount of the funding that was approved in 2019 is not sufficient at this point, this many years later, to build the animal shelter plus an expanded scope for it. And so the intent would be to utilize both the funding that was already approved and the supplemental funding.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I asked this during the Finance Committee meeting, so I'll ask it for the purpose of my colleagues here. So with the spring retreat, we were told that up to a nickel increase in the tax rate would fund up to $300 million in projects, and so it's $350 million with inflation. So where does the extra $50 million come from?
So that's within, we had a chart, the same chart that I showed tonight was shown then of the 350 is what is able to be obtained within the 5-cent tax rate increase, but it funds $300 million worth of projects today. And so we focused at the retreat on today's dollars so that we were talking about those projects that then needed to be inflation adjusted upward to make sure that over the 5 to 7 year planning period that we're still able to deliver the totality of the projects that we're committing to when we do the public education.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for everybody. Thanks.
Robert? Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Nishan.
No problem, Mayor. Jennifer, one slide before, if you can just go back there. I think that's the, well, yeah, this is the money slide in my opinion. Can you go over this really slowly? What does it impact to the citizens?
Yes, so the incremental impact of a 5-cent tax rate increase over 5 to 7 years would result in, you could look at it two ways. One is each year seeing about a $5 a month increase to you, or about $50 a year. It's less than $5 a month. So you can look at it that way, of that, seeing that each year, or you could look at it cumulatively at the end of the 7 years. What is the impact to you? And that's about $20 per month cumulatively.
And the end result that the citizen will get is approximately $350 million worth of improvements.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Suzanne?
Thank you, Jennifer. Last time we did a bond, we had it divided up into different areas and propositions. Are we going to divide this up? Are we going to put it all together? And it may be too soon to ask that question, but just curious.
It is a great question, and we'll be reviewing that with you again at a future meeting prior to calling the election. But right now, what you see is a general structuring recommendation. State law requires us to separate projects by category. And so this is kind of the minimum separation that you would want to see, with the exception of the animal shelter, which could stand alone or be combined with facilities or public safety.
Everybody good? Sure, follow up.
So just to clarify, as we have in the past, should a project like this move forward beyond November, it's approved. It doesn't mean we're taking on that debt immediately until it's the council of the day spends it. So as people see and hear this, we're not suggesting that. I just want to make sure that people are not hearing you or anyone up here say, hey, it's all going to be spent day one. That's not ever been the case, and
Absolutely.
It would be the opinion of the council of the day for that.
Yeah, absolutely. The council each year will get to make a determination for the tax rate for that year and the plan to issue debt. And just like you saw during COVID for the 2019 bond election, we made adjustments when we needed to. There are also opportunities to accelerate projects as something becomes more important than it was in the initial planning period. But right now we are planning for this to be spaced out over a planning period of about 5 to 7 years, and that's both projects and the debt and tax rate impact.
Follow.
And I think it's important, Jennifer, to William's point, do you know how much we added to our budget by other forms of financing or other forms of funding that were not included? I know we had the drainage in Covington Woods was a no interest loan.
I do not know that number off the top of my head of the totality of our investment in the community when it comes to use of other funding sources, but you are right that the city has been aggressive in pursuing grants and other funding mechanisms like zero interest loans to make our dollars go farther for the benefit of the community. And so if that's a number like that you would like to see and have ready for public education, we can certainly pull that number.
Jennifer, you made a point early on, and that was taking advantage of the county's $45 million that they participate with. And it's not just the Texas Water Development Board, it's not just Fort Bend County, it's HGAC.
Absolutely, and you'll see that.
They have funds available. We've gotten grants, no interest loans. We've taken advantage, I think, of every opportunity to save our citizens, money. So.
Absolutely.
Robert?
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So these are going to be the projects that are that other funding. So this is the enterprise fund and the other funds that we've received, including the airport utilities, SL4A, 4B, and any grants that the city's received for the FY25 through the FY29 CIP book. So we'll get started with the FY25 airport projects. So these two projects are the terminal ramp expansion design phase 1 and the new fuel farm design for a total of $1,050,000. We have two drainage projects that are funded. One of them is the Brazos River Erosion US 59 Memorial Park area. That's through a CDBG MIT grant. And then the other one is a Brazos River Erosion at Riverstone, which is a Texas Water Development Board grant. For a total of $32,063,600. Then this one's the animal shelter, $6.35 million from the 2019 GO bond. Then parks projects. So the two highlights here are the Ganaway Lake Trails and the Sugar Land Trail Phase 2, which are both funded through the HGAC grants. Total parks projects are $11,577,204. 25 streets projects. There's 4A funding for some major street rehab in the amount of $2 million. Traffic projects, we have some 4A money for landscape replacement along some of the major roadways and enhancement projects. We also have $2,530,000 for Next Gen ITS that came from the Fort Bend Mobility Bund as 100% funding. For water projects, we have the groundwater building improvements, water south of the Brazos with the water treatment plant phase 1, which has to do with the new ETJ to the south. The groundwater storage tank rehab, SCADA improvements, and groundwater plant rehab, along with an elevated storage tank south of the Brazos, a water line connection to Greatwood, water line distribution rehab, EST rehab, and groundwater plant, emergency generator, and right angle drive maintenance programs for a total of $26,250,000. FY25 wastewater, we have collection system rehab, lift station rehab, wastewater treatment plant, and diversion for south of the Brazos in relation to the ETJ, along with some improvements at the north wastewater treatment plant. We have lift station bypass pumps rehab, collection system rehab, and odor control at the south wastewater treatment plant for a total of $53,893,000. For our surface water plant, we have the surface water plant rehab with chemical systems and the membrane replacements. And then we have reclaimed water for the south of the Brazos for both transmission and a plant. And we have an increase in funding to the Telfair water pump station construction. The total number is $10,260,000. So this is a summary of those funds for FY25. With $43,140,804 coming from grants. It's about 31% of the funding. And then 2%, that $2,530,000 coming from the Fort Bend Mobility Bond. And our total funding would be $139,823,804. For the 26 through 29 CIP, airport projects, we have the rental car parking lot design and construction, the construction of the terminal ramp expansion. We have the construction of the new fuel farm and the admin building and terminal renovation design, totaling in $9,189,380. For parks projects, we have the joint participation in CIP, Eldridge Park improvements, and various other park improvements for a total of $9 million, all funded by SL4B. For streets, we have some more 4A funding for some major street rehab for a total of $3,500,000. We have traffic projects in the landscape replacement for a total of $800,000 over the 4 years. For water, we have some more south of the Brazos water construction of that connection to Greatwood, replacement of generators and right-angle drives at groundwater plants, some well rehab, groundwater plant rehab, SCADA improvements, water south of Brazos plant phase 2, that's going to expand that original phase. Then we have some more water line distribution, a public works campus expansion, and additional groundwater building improvements for a total of $37,340,000. For wastewater, we have the decommissioning of the Greatwood wastewater treatment plant, as those flows will be converted over to the south of Brazos plant. Collection system rehab, lift station rehab, wastewater treatment plant rehab, lift station bypass pump improvements, north wastewater treatment plant improvements, and chlorine contact, and the south of Brazos wastewater plant phase 2 for a total of $57,985,000. For surface water, we have surface water treatment plant rehab phase 2 improvements. We have the phase 1 transmission line construction for south of the Brazos, surface water treatment plant expansion, surface water transmission lines, surface water groundwater plant conversion, north wastewater treatment plant reclaimed water designed for that, and south of the Brazos reclaimed phase 2 design for a total of $122,486,640. So by funding source over the years, so over the 5 years, airport will be funded about $10,500,000 for revenue bonds. Surface water, water, and wastewater is a total of $308,220,220. The 4A funding is about $6.5 million for streets and traffic projects. The 4B money is $9.5 million for parks projects. The other funding sources, so drainage grants, we received $32,063,000. We have $2.53 million from the traffic Fort Bend mobility bond, and the parks grants have come in at $11,077,000 for a total of $45,670,000. And so this is the total number spent over FY 25 to 29, $380.39 million. And with that, I'll take any questions that y'all have.
Questions? William, start with you.
Mine is a silly question. Decommissioning a wastewater plant in Greatwood, and I certainly know it's necessary. What does that look like? Does that mean the entire site is scraped and it's just going to be grass, or what happens in decommissioning?
So typically the plant's going to be converted into a lift station, and then we're going to pick that back up from the lift station and pump it down to the new plant. So,
Jennifer. Suzanne.
Of course. I have a question. So on the grants that we have, which is $43 million, how fast can we move forward with those projects? Because where are we at in receiving those grants? And there's no need to hold those up. So how soon can we move on those?
So the city's currently working on the 2 Brazos River grants. So we have one CDBG MIT grant that we're working through the paperwork with Texas GLO. And then additionally, we're working through paperwork with the Texas Water Development Board to get that money accessed and over to us so we can start spending it.
Okay, and my other one, because I love parks, what about our 4B money? How soon can we go forward on those? Is that incremental, or is that sort of one time?
So it is an incremental funding. There is going to be some funding over certain years. A lot of it's going to be kind of even across the years, so across all 5 years.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. Either for Robert or Jennifer, since we've been talking about general obligation bonds and voting for the bonds and whatnot, could you please make the distinction about what revenue bonds are and how those are repaid as compared to the ones that people will be voting on in the fall?
Simply put, general obligation bonds are backed by the property tax rate, and revenue bonds are bonds issued off of the revenue stream from revenues, whether it's utility revenues or sales tax in the economic development corporations, simply put.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Robert.
I have just a quick little wrap up on community engagement. We will be continuing to focus on educational efforts, and so this is just an example of the public information that we will be making available about your intent to call an election to allow residents to make this decision. Information on the project categories and next steps, how to engage with us and ask questions. Those efforts, like I said, will be launching this week, and we are planning to be present at a number of events across the city this summer to share educational information, everything from HOA meetings to block parties and the special events. And so then we will be continuing to refine this information. You will receive the city manager's filed budget and CIP in July. We will then, after that, receive the certified tax roll, which will allow us to make some additional refinements. In August, you will have the pleasure of sitting through several budget workshops. I know you all look forward to this, and then that will be kind of at where we do the final confirmation prior to you calling an election no later than August 19th. And then we would, of course, continue our education throughout the early fall with the election in November. And so that is it.
Question. Carol?
Thank you. As I've said before, at the end of the 5 to 7 year time frame, assuming all the GO bonds pass, I would personally like to see the tax rate just slightly under 40 cents, which is a 14% increase on top of any valuations, and that would include the remainder of any tax rate increasing. That includes the 2019 GO bond.
Thank you.
Good to go. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Item number 4B, review of and discussion on recommendations for the Legacy Foundation. And we have with us Kimberly Terrell, our Interim Director of Parks and Rec. Kimberly.
Howdy. Okay. All right, so the Sugar Land Legacy Foundation was established by City Council in 2010, and that was to create a vehicle for fundraising and promote and sustain quality of life projects and goals for the city. Seed funding and staff liaison is provided by the city. I'm the staff liaison currently for the Legacy Foundation. And then they assist with donations and quality of life enhancements. And I wanted to stop and pause and talk about and celebrate our successes to date, thanking both our past and current board members and everybody who's contributed to these projects. We've got just about 20 projects that have been completed so far, and up to about $1 million in-kind and donations from our citizens and from our visitors alike. So we began strategic planning with Sterling in 2020, and that recommendation was presented to City Council in 2021. Some of those goals that were identified were for the Legacy Foundation to operate independently and more sustainably, and to play a more significant role in fundraising. So the recommendations to achieve those goals were: 1, to hire dedicated staff, to expand the board, to create project selection criteria and a process, and to diversify those sources of revenue that were coming into the foundation. So what we've done so far to date, in 2022, there were some bylaw changes that were updated. Those are here for you to review. One of the ones that we're going to focus on a little bit is the ability to designate standing or temporary committees, and that the majority of the members must be on the board. So the recommendation that we're focused on today is to expand the board. Currently, there are 4 board members that operate the board, and there's a maximum of 15 that's recommended by the report. And of course, those recommendations are to have to diversify and have a large group that's representative of our community. As of course, you know, we have some things that we're working on right now, such as the fundraising for the animal shelter, and you know, some of these things just literally take a village to do. So they say many hands make light work. So as we ramp up some of those fundraising projects, like for the animal shelter, we will need a diverse group of people with a variety of talents. And this was a recommendation in the Sterling report, and just some example of some of those committees that are proposed that be formed by this board. want to focus on that project fundraising committee a little bit. So every project that comes forward, such as the animal shelter, will require a project fundraising committee. The committee must be comprised by at least 2 members of the board, but it must be a majority of board members, but also can include folks from the community, and just interested folks to create those fundraising plans and that project execution and those communications. So our basic strategy, one of the things that that was identified in the plan and that we've identified as staff is just lack of communication about the board. We find a lot of people don't know about the Legacy Foundation, haven't really heard about the Legacy Foundation. When projects come forward, we try to put some information out, but maybe we haven't done the best job. So one of our foundational things that we'll be working on is a communication plan, just out to the public to celebrate those successes, to talk about the great things that they've done, to talk about maybe some of the opportunities, and to celebrate the board. So we'll be working through a recruitment process. We'll be advertising for board members. Some of those things will include informational meetings and socials. Just again, hey, come out and let's talk about what the Legacy Foundation is. Maybe how can you get involved? Maybe if you don't want to be on the board, maybe there's some other ways for you to get involved. And then interviews, and then leading to appointment. We'd like to appoint at least 5 to 10 board members, leading up to another recruitment process possibly in the next year. So we would get those, we would also be working on suggestions from the Legacy Foundation itself and from City Council on some of those folks that you think might want to be involved in the board. And the Legacy Foundation is also brainstorming that as well. When I talked to you a few months ago, we talked about some of the strategies for 2024 and just wanted to end the presentation with that and some of our strategies. So recruiting board members is obviously forefront most of our mind, and then forming those subcommittees, but also hiring an executive director. So we'll be proceeding with the executive director process and recruiting and hiring an executive director for this. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Questions? Carol.
One of the fundraising opportunities we talked about for the Legacy Foundation several years ago was to fundraise for bronze statues at Memorial Park, and I didn't see that on the current list. Is that still a current fundraising project?
Yes, that's still a current fundraising project, is to finish out the memorial project, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
This time, we're going to move on to item number 5A, City Council Member Reports. Our new Mayor Pro Tem, let's start with you.
Thank you, sir. Is this part of the job, starting reports?
It is tonight.
It is tonight. Okay, so we all did a lot in the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to try and keep it really light. I'm going to go with Empty Bowls. On June 14th, some of us went to the Empty Bowls, and Empty Bowls is East Fort Bend Human Needs. It was at the Marriott this year, which was new, and we had a lot of great food from a lot of restaurants around here serving soup. And congratulations, Empty Bowls, you raised $345,000. So carry on.
Jennifer.
All of us participated in a luncheon and an auction item with the Exchange Club of Sugar Land. We had a very nice lunch with former council member Don Smithers this week.
William.
Mayor, I have never felt so 56 years old as I did the other night at Smart Financial. What a venue we have in this city. I now am familiar with a new term called K-pop, Korean pop. ITZY was in town, and yes, I was the host that night, and I had never heard of any of it. The place was packed. Smart Financial is amazing, and I'm thankful for what it brings to our community.
You hear a lot of screaming?
Oh, everyone was screaming. And one more thing. Former mayor of Missouri City and I, we got second place in the in the Missouri City Juneteenth. We call it our U.S. Open trophy. So right now, I know that Alan Eccles is watching, just laughing.
Congratulations, William. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. You and I did a lot of stuff together this week. We both hosted the Texas Dow Employees Credit Union at the Space Cowboys game on Sunday, and then we were both attended the HGAC board meeting, and they thanked Mayor Zimmerman for his many, many years of leadership on the HGAC. And that was very, that felt wonderful seeing how much people have appreciated him. So.
Carol.
Well, I attended the UCI Pump Track World Championship qualifier that was held right here in Sugar Land. It's the only place in the entire country where it was held. So that was really, really exciting. And I visited with the winner of the men's division, and I asked him how the pump track in Sugar Land compared with other pump tracks. And he says it is a world-class pump track, and he said that they were provided with world-class support. So that was really, really great to hear, and super job by Parks. Really appreciate that. And most of council attended the Pulte Group groundbreaking on its 958-acre track in the Richmond that's going to be annexed into Sugar Land's ETJ. And several of us attended the Zoom Room dog training, and that's a new dog training facility. Oh, it's a ribbon cutting for that, located in the Target shopping center.
Deshaun.
Mayor, you and I attended Friday night baseball game and Constellation, and Parks Department was there, along with many of the users of our parks. They really love our facilities, and thanks to our parks team, continued doing great work there. And then many of us also attended the Arc of Fort Bend in District 1 ribbon cutting ceremony of their beautiful facility in the business park. Congratulations to that entire team on a beautiful facility that they have, and they do wonderful things for those in our community.
I'd just like to thank not only the council members. We had 6 games this week. Everybody attended a game and took turns in hosting, and then we had great staff participation. And the food and the games, I will note that our Space Cowboys are 8 games ahead in first place. Too bad the Astros aren't similarly positioned. They're in 3rd place right now, but they're working their way up. So it's been, Mike, it's been a pleasure. It's really worked well. We've had economic development, as Nishad said. We've had parks. We've had Yasmin, Jessica, Jennifer. Everybody's had a great time, and I think we've done a world of good with our businesses. Mike, item number 5B.
All right, Mayor. The first bit of news is I'd like to congratulate publicly our City Attorney Meredith for being named the Galen Sparks Award Outstanding Public Service by her peers at the Texas City Attorneys Association. So we've known this for a long time, but it's definitely much deserved. So congratulations. There we go. Meredith loves the attention.
I was about to say, one thing I know about Meredith, she is not happy right
well, luckily,
now. Okay.
I do have an advantage in the org chart, but I will pay for this. So I just want to congratulate her. Had the opportunity to host at Smart Financial, had a great time there. Obviously, the Del Webb opening, and then want to congratulate the city was just named a What Works City certified city. Only 3 cities in the Americas are that. We're the only city in Texas under a 250,000 population that's certified. So great work by everybody in the whole city to be able to pull that off. That's it.
Congratulations. We're going to move on now to item number 6, closed executive session. 6A, closed executive session is authorized by 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with 551074. Personnel matters. At this time, we're going to recess into the council dining room. Thank you all for attending tonight.